We should be live now.
Great, thank you. Welcome everyone to the December 21st, 2021 council meeting. It is the last meeting of 2021. You can visit the town's website at www.parrysound.ca for details to watch this meeting live streamed or recorded and join by the Zoom meeting. I'd like to at this time acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty and the Métis that traveled the waterways of our particular region. Prior to the open session, council met for a brief closed session. It was moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor McCann. That pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 is amended. Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moved to a meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, applicants to the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame Exhibition Ad Hoc Advisory Committee, and E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, appeal to Ontario Land Tribunal of rezoning Z21-05 McMurray and Gibson Streets. And that meeting was had. Are there any additions to the agenda? No. Any prioritization of the agenda? Nope. May I have a mover and seconder then to adopt the agenda? Councillor McCann and Councillor Burden, that the council agenda for December 21st, 2021 be approved as circulated. Anyone opposed to passing that resolution? Nope, that's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Nope. Okay. May I have a mover and seconder for the minutes? Councillor Burden and Councillor Keith, that the minutes from the special council meeting held November 30th, 2021 be approved as circulated, and that the minutes of the regular council meeting held December 7th, 2021 be approved as circulated. Any discussion or comments on those minutes? No? Anyone opposed to the passing of those minutes? Nope. That's carried then. Questions of staff? Councillor Keith.
Yes, my question is for Mr. Cairns, or should Vinnie Bonanza be there? Certainly, I'm sure he can answer more fully about the railing on Cascade Street.
Yes, of course. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have the foundations now installed, and talking with the contractor, he's just finishing fabricating everything up and looking to put upright steel in probably by the end of the week.
So my question is, once the upright steel is put up, if hopefully it's the end of the week or somewhere near that, does that also mean there will be a railing horizontally across also, so anybody who wants to hold on to that railing coming down will be able to do so?
Yes. Just with the uprights, we had to pick a day. Well, she's trying to pick a day that we have to be above zero, because when you epoxy the uprights into the footings, it has to be above zero or zero for it to set properly. And then once those are in place, he is just basically going to weld the whole thing in place once he gets the uprights right on site.
So how much, once the uprights are on site, roughly how much longer does one anticipate it should take, weather permitting, for this welding to occur so there is a horizontal whatever railing across so people can hold on to it going down the hill? What's the guesstimate, please?
So weather depending, probably if I was to do a good educated guess, would probably be, a week or so after he got the uprights up. But I can talk to him more and confirm that for you.
Thank you. And I would hope when the uprights or when the final railing is up, that we're going to have a nice yellow bow or something on there to signify it is done, because I am quite willing to come and give acknowledgement to it, because I think there are citizens who will really appreciate it. So thank you.
No problem.
Councillor McCann.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, time for the phone to ring. This will be for Mr. Kearns. Mr. Kearns, I know that you've been looking into the, I'm sorry. I know that you've been looking into costs and structural requirements for lighting with regards to enhancing the visibility at the corner of Pine and Bow Street. And also I've been asking about Queen Street. Where are you at that? And at some point, will we have some figures that we can bring to council for the inclusion in the budget for 2022?
Yes, through your worship. So yes, we have been looking into it, and that's what we're just waiting on, is the electrical confirmation at the one location to ensure that, again, it's very unique intersection in terms of overhead wiring, poles, signs, that sort of thing. So we've looked at a couple of configurations, and we have a couple of options back from our lighting contractor. So we're just trying to get the pricing together with our electrical contractor who would have to install those. The same thing for Queen Street. So yes, we should have numbers available for the 22 budget.
Great, thanks very much.
Any further questions of staff? Nope. Okay, correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Mr. Worship, we just have one item of correspondence this evening. It is from the Muskoka Lakes Chamber of Commerce. The information just disappeared from my computer. I've got it back again. I apologize. Muskoka Lakes Chamber of Commerce, Nora Fountain, the executive director, writing in support of Seguin Township's application for MZO to zone lands as residential, and urging the town's support of that. Ms. Fountain cites the need for housing and the recognition of this need over the past 20 years and attempts that have been made to provide housing on short-term basis for staff, and that staff don't have housing and therefore there's a shortage, etc. And so is urging this town support of that MZO. And that's the correspondence.
Okay, thank you. So now we have deputations, and we have a couple of deputations tonight. And the first one is Christina Zardo, Manager of Municipal Solutions, regarding Food Cycler and Impact Canada. So welcome, Christina.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to share my screen and a presentation.
Okay.
Would you be able to confirm that you can see my presentation?
I can see your presentation.
Excellent. So thank you very much for having me again this evening, so close to the holidays. My name's Christina Zardo. I'm here on behalf of Food Cycle Sciences Municipal Solutions team. I'll do a presentation of approximately 10 minutes to discuss a residential solution to food waste. So Food Cycle Science is a Canadian company based out of Ottawa, and we're 100% focused on providing food waste diversion solutions using our innovative technology called the Food Cycler. It's an in-home food recycler. We sell direct to consumers through partners like Vitamix and Breville, and to municipalities through Food Cycler Municipal. Our municipal solutions help mainly small, rural, remote, and northern communities keep food waste out of landfills. As of today, the Food Cycler is a trusted solution for over 30 municipalities across Canada, across 7 provinces and territories, including nearby communities such as Seguin, Armour, Burkes Falls, Ryerson, Algonquin Highlands, Dysart et al., Bonfield, Central Manitoulin, and Killarney. Now, the problem with food waste, of course, is that it is avoidable. It accounts for almost half of our household waste, and it's made up of mostly liquid, which is heavy and freezes in the winter. On top of that, the entire waste management system, including millions of tons of food waste going into our landfills, is responsible for generating harmful greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change. So all of these factors make it so that food waste is a problem that has a strong municipal impact. And one of those impacts to municipalities is that since food waste makes up so much of what's in our garbage, it causes a strain on our regional landfills, which are filling up quickly, and in municipalities that transfer their residential waste, and it can account for a major cost that uses up our tax dollars. The environmental impact is that when organic waste decomposes in landfills, the anaerobic environment causes it to produce methane gas, which is a greenhouse gas that is many times more harmful to CO2 that contributes to climate change. And in our communities, putting food waste in the garbage causes some interesting odors, which can attract unwanted visitors like bears, raccoons, and other vermin. So removing food waste from the garbage eliminates these issues and reduces volume. For the municipality, this will save space in our nearby landfills, lower your disposal and transfer costs. And for residents, less waste means making fewer trips to the landfill, saving us on time and gas money, etc. So we often get asked, haven't we solved this already? There are curbside green bin programs, which millions of Canadians are accustomed to, but they're mostly available in big cities with high population density and an investment in infrastructure. But this solution can be cost prohibitive and operationally challenging in rural areas. And many people in your community might use a backyard composter, which we think is a great solution. However, many people may not have the space, ability, or desire to do this at home, and there's still the concern about odors and animals. And then finally, the easiest solution is to continue to landfill your organics, but the long-term impacts are costly and harmful to the environment. So at Food Cycler, what we've proposed is a different way of dealing with our food waste that focuses on making it easy to deal with and right in the home. Essentially, we've built a small kitchen appliance. It's about the size of a bread machine, where you put in your food waste, and that can include meat, poultry, fish, dairy, even some bones. You push a button, and in a matter of hours, you have a dry, sterile, odorless, and nutrient-rich soil amendment that comes out. The resulting byproduct can be used in gardening, on landscaping, in your existing composting system. It can be given to a local farm. It can even be pelletized and used as an alternative source of home heating. So the Food Cycler will process on average 1 kilogram of food waste per cycle. A cycle takes between 4 to 8 hours to complete, and it uses less than 1 kilowatt hour of power. This is roughly equivalent to having a computer plugged in for the same amount of time. The result is 100 grams of dry, sterile, odorless soil amendment, and the machine can be used anywhere with a plug, so your kitchen countertop, a basement, or even heated garage. So from an environmental standpoint, the Food Cycler is comparable to backyard and central composting without transportation emissions, of course, but it represents an approximate reduction of greenhouse gas impact by 95% versus sending food waste to the landfill. And in terms of economic impact, our solution offers a return on investment by significantly reducing your waste management costs. In the short term, you have less disposal, lower operating costs. In the long term, we get many more years out of our landfills, and our community can achieve higher diversion without implementing costly programs. Now, one thing that we have learned from working with municipalities is that residents are very interested in being part of the solution. They want to try new things, they want options, and they want their government to bring these things to the community. With the Food Cycler, you can bring something innovative and tangible to your residents, and they don't need to live in a big city to be able to divert their organics. We believe that food waste diversion should be available to all Canadians all year round, no matter where you live. Now, on top of this social pressure is the impact of the regulations that are coming to us here in Ontario. There are a number of diversion targets I'm sure you know are coming into effect in the next couple of years. And we're also expecting new directives regarding methane emissions stemming from the recent Glasgow Climate Pact. With the food cycler, we're reducing waste at the source. We're focusing on that low-hanging fruit, because since it accounts for such a large portion of household waste, it is the single most impactful strategy to achieving these diversion targets. Now, I mentioned earlier that we're working with several municipalities across Canada. To date, we have completed pilots in over 700 households across 7 municipalities, and the results have been overwhelmingly positive. We have achieved a significant amount of net new diversion, and over 90% of people say they would recommend the solution. In the city of Nelson in BC specifically, their council voted to put a food cycler in every home in their city of 10,000 people following the success of their pilots. Now, earlier this year, Food Cycler was selected as a semi-finalist in Impact Canada's Food Waste Reduction Challenge, which is a 3-part initiative from the Government of Canada to reduce our country's food waste. As a semi-finalist, we were awarded a $100,000 prize, and we were tasked with finding Canadian municipalities as implementation partners. What this means is that we have federal funding that we're using to invest directly into pilot projects at a heavily subsidized price. Larger amounts are available in later stages if we're successful, but stage 1 wraps up on January 10th. So because we're talking today, you will be the last municipality that will be eligible to take advantage of the subsidies, which I'll outline in just a moment. So the pilot program is typically a 12-week project. Residents will purchase a food cycler at a subsidized rate from the municipality. They'll use the unit, tracking the number of cycles per week. At the end, residents get to keep their food cycler, of course, and we ask them to complete a brief survey so that we can evaluate diversion and the program's success. The results of the survey are also sources of valuable data that can be used to support your future municipal waste management decisions or to support an application for funding to expand the program. The Green Municipal Fund through FCM is a potential source of funding for which we are pre-approved. So here's an overview of how the funded pilot programs are laid out, including our recommendations. For a municipality of your size, we would recommend a pilot of at least 100 households, and they work based on a subsidy model where Food Cycle Science provides a discount, and we add in the federal investment from Impact Canada to get the price of the unit reduced by 50%. We then ask the municipality to subsidize 100 per unit plus shipping. So the resident only ends up paying $150 for a $500 machine. And remember, after the pilot, they do get to keep their food cycler. Now, these recommendations are based on a model that has been successful in other municipalities, but we can, of course, explore other options that are tailored to your needs or your budget. But to give you a bit of insight, in Seguin, which has a population of about 4,200, they have opted for a 100 household pilot program, which will launch in late spring or early summer to take advantage of the influx of seasonal residents who are eager for a solution. And this is something we might recommend for you as well. So we would welcome Parry Sound as a partner in this challenge. We think your community would benefit from this program. Tonight, we would ask that you receive our presentation, and if there's interest in a pilot, to refer to staff for report and recommendation. Once again, thanks so much for having me, and I'm prepared to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Thanks, Christina. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So if we, let's say we provided some direction tonight for council to, bring a report back on this, we don't have a council meeting until about the middle of January. Does that work?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that would work fine. We would honor the pricing presented to you today until the end of January if that you needed that much time.
Well, it's like tonight's our last meeting until the new year, and then there's New Year's and everything. So usually we only have one meeting in January. So, and it's about the middle of January. So if we could have that report and recommendation for the middle of January. I'm just making sure that that would work. I can't speak for the rest of council, but I am certainly interested in making sure that, well, in supporting initiatives that like this, that reduce our amount of waste going to landfill. And personally, we used to compost at home, but the animals were getting into it and it was attracting bears and not too many people in the neighborhood like that. So, you know, so we had to stop. But this certainly allows people to compost and then, you know, without the odor and drawing animals. So, Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would certainly move that or second it, whatever's necessary to get it on the agenda and get the direction, particularly if we can get the take advantage of the project. I do have one question.
Yep.
How many cycles does a typical household go through in the course of a day or a week at this point?
That's a great question. So it will depend on the number of people in your household and how much food waste you generate. For myself, I'm a 2-person household and I'll cycle every 2 days roughly. In a household of 4 people, you might run a cycle daily.
So that's interesting. So, you know, if you're cooking and there's always some waste that if you're cutting up romaine or carrots or, you know, vegetables, that sort of thing, there's always a great deal of, I could see it in our household running a cycle at least once a day anyhow. Does the thing have some way of packing it down before you turn it on to convert it into something else for heating or compost, you know, or for fertilizer, or whatever be the case?
Yeah, so it does use a grinding application. So there does have to be space for the grinder to turn. If it's packed too tightly, it might interfere with that. The bucket is about 2.5 liters in size. So for most people, that's adequate. But sometimes other people will do is buy a second bucket, which we could provide, and essentially doubles your capacity. So while one is cycling, you have another bucket to fill. And when it's done, you just swap them out. Okay,
that's good to know. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor McCann's moved the direction. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Bachman. I'm going to ask for, is there any, Councillor Bachman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Christina, for the presentation. I'm really glad to see you here this evening. This summer, while I was traveling throughout Ontario, I did hear the deputation that you made to Kenora through publication on the radio. So I was, yeah, it's very good to see you here. And I think that our community has been really looking for solutions such as this for some time. We've heard that from the public ongoing. So I definitely am pleased to hear Mayor McGarvey's recommendation this evening to bring direction back forth to the staff to bring forth in the new year. So crossing my fingers. Thanks.
Thank you for the positive comments, Councillor, and glad to hear that some of our programs are getting some media attention as well.
Anything further? No. Anyone opposed to the direction? No one's opposed to the direction, so that's good. We'll have a staff recommendation and bring that back. It'll be about the middle of January. Okay, thank you. And there's no any more questions for Christina? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too. Okay, our next deputation is from Brooke Harrison, Project Coordinator, Georgian Bay Forever. And it's a report on the washing machine filters, reducing microfiber emissions.
Thank you, Council. I just want to confirm that you can see that screen there.
Yep, it's good.
Great. Well, good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Brooke Harrison, and I'm with Georgian Bay Forever, and I'm joined tonight by Lisa Erdahl from the University of Toronto. Georgian Bay Forever is a charity dedicated to scientific research and public education on Georgian Bay's aquatic ecosystem. Our mission is to protect, enhance, and restore the aquatic ecosystem of Georgian Bay by funding accredited research to water levels, water quality, and ecosystems. Back in 2018 and 2019, GBF partnered with the Rockman Lab at University of Toronto to study microfibers in Georgian Bay. The Rockman Lab was identifying microfibers in sediment samples from Georgian Bay, as well as in fish such as lake trout and rainbow smelt. GBF and University of Toronto wanted to do something about this. Tonight, we are here to share the results from our Divert and Capture pilot project located right here in Parry Sound. I just want to start by saying a huge thank you for supporting this program over the past few years. Tonight, I will go over some of the goals that we had, and Lisa will share the results from our newly published paper, and then we will ask you to consider supporting the mass adoption of filters through legislation. Divert and Capture's purpose is to better understand the impacts of microfibers shed from our clothing and prove that filters are an effective way of stopping the pollution at the source. We believe this pilot project is the first of its kind in Canada, and it involves working with 97 resident volunteers here in the town of Parry Sound. The project had 3 overreaching goals that are focused on improving the water quality. The first was to physically divert microplastics and microfibers from entering our water at the source. This was done in 2 ways, which Lisa will explain in detail, but we measured the wastewater treatment plant final effluent before and after these filters were installed to look for a reduction in microfibers. We also asked all households who had a filter to collect and store their lint in the freezer for us to collect and analyze to really understand how much we were collecting and what we were collecting. The other 2 components, which I won't be speaking to today, but was to engage the community in hands-on cleanup, shoreline cleanups, and provide the public with information on what microplastics are and to provide practical tips. As you can see, there is a few components, but today I'm going to be sharing the results from diverting microplastics at the source, which was our laundry machines. Parry Sound is a wonderful community home to dedicated, caring, and passionate environmentalists. This project was successful because of the citizens that call Parry Sound home. Here are some images taken over the years. Since 2019, we have hosted over 30 shoreline cleanups in and around Parry Sound and many more around Georgian Bay. We have attended farmers markets, hosted workshops, and attended outreach events to spread awareness on the plastic crisis we are facing of both macro and microplastics. You can see a volunteer here, Kathy Nash, emptying out what was one of her filter bags in her home. And the last photo is a picture of what the households collected over a 4-month period from the microfiber filters. We are so excited to announce that this study with Lisa Erdahl was just recently published, and I'll pass it over to Lisa to share some of these results.
Thanks, Brooke. And thank you all so much for having us. So just to give a little bit of a background and a bit of context for those of you that might not be as familiar with the issue. So there are many studies that show that laundry release microfibers every time it's washed. So the most recent research shows that a single load of laundry releases anywhere from hundreds of thousands to millions of microfibers each time you run a load of laundry. And there are other sources of microfibers as well. We know that cigarette butts are a source of fibers to the Great Lakes, as well as carpets and dryers, fishing nets where they're used. But we know that washing clothing is a major source. And when this washing machine effluent is carried to a wastewater treatment plant, some of these fibers are released directly into aquatic ecosystems. And a study from the Great Lakes found that a single plant can release over 4 million microplastics in a single day. And most of those are microfibers. And can you just one click, Brooke? And so we looked at this and realized that reducing microfibers at this emission source would be an effective solution to addressing a major contributor of this type of microplastic pollution. Next slide, please. So first, as a pilot, we investigated the effectiveness of 2 different technologies that are available, both marketed to reduce microfiber emissions, and we did these experiments in our lab. This work was led by 2 undergraduate students who were posing with their bright red blankets. And what they did is they did laundry with those red blankets that they're wearing as capes, both with and without these devices. And one goes directly into the wash in the drum, and another which is an external filter collecting all the microfibers from the washing machine effluent. So this was a lint lever, but now there is another type of filter as well. Next slide, please. So what we did is we quantified the efficiency of these different devices in capturing fibers, and the results from a paper that we published found that the Cora ball reduced the number of microfibers per liter of effluent by 26%, and the lint lever, the filter, reduced by 87%. So what this showed is that these filters significantly reduce microfibers and that they work, but we didn't really know whether or not we could scale this up and could also apply to a community. And just acknowledging another student who helped me with this work, Sam Athey, another PhD student at U of T. Next slide, please. So as a proof of concept, we really wanted to see whether or not these filters are also effective at the scale of a community, because we know it works in the lab, but we wanted to test to see whether or not this would work at a larger scale. So we ran the study with nearly 100 filters in people's homes. Since we already knew that they were effective in the lab, we wanted to see if it was effective at the scale of community. And with nearly 100 filters in people's homes, with just over 1,000 homes connected to the municipal wastewater treatment plant, we expected to see an approximate 10% reduction in microfibers. Next slide, please. And here's what we found in our published study. We found that there is a decrease in the number of microfibers in wastewater effluent. So this is the final treated effluent at the Parry Sound Municipal Wastewater Treatment Plant. And this plot shows the average number of fibers per liter for these composite samples at 3 different sample periods, 2 periods before installing the filters and 2 sample periods immediately after the install. So we saw a significant reduction after installing these filters. And this is what these fibers look like. We filtered these samples and put them on double-sided tape and then numbered them, and then used something called Raman spectroscopy to analyze them in our lab, which gave us an indication of what type of fibers these were, whether or not they were plastic, whether they were cotton, and so on. Next, please. And as Brooke mentioned, throughout the 2-year study, we monitored the lint that's captured in these filter bags. And this is a small piece of laundry lint. We see lots of microfibers. This is just a small, less than 1 milligram sample of lint, and you see hundreds or hundreds of thousands of microfibers all tangled together. And this is what was captured in these filters and diverted from the Great Lakes. And in this lint, we see other microplastics too. We captured lots of sequins, lots of glitter. So it's capturing other microplastics other than just fibers. Next slide, please. Yeah, and here's an example of just what some of these particles look like under the microscope. Lots of different colors, lots of different shapes, and the lint in the filter bag. So when you look at it up close, you start to see all the different types of particles that are actually there. Whereas when you have this massive lint that's in the filters, you might not notice. Next slide, please. So when we scale up the results from this study, what we find is with 97 filters installed, about 1 in 10 households, we captured an average of 6.4 grams of lint per week. And since 1 milligram of lint is anywhere between 10 to hundreds of microfibers, this is about 1 to 14.1 billion microfibers that were captured per year in just the 97 households in Parry Sound that had filters installed. And we also saw this, as I mentioned, a significant reduction of microfibers. So if we were to scale this up, if we had filters in every household in a big city, this would translate to trillions of microfibers captured each year. And currently there are cities and regions and countries that have implemented new policies or drafted bills that would require filters just to be built into washing machines, because what the study shows is that these filters work, they're effective, not only in the lab, but in the scale of a community. And France and Australia have recently passed legislation that would mandate filters on new washing machines, and they look to results from Parry Sound and our work from the University of Toronto to inform these policies. So you might be pleased to know that in international discussions about how to prevent microfiber emissions, Parry Sound is a well-known place. So with that, I'll just turn it back over to Brooke for a few closing slides.
Thank you, Lisa. So the ultimate goal of Diversion Capture is to use this data and research collected to make it mandatory that all laundry machines have a microfiber built in the machine, similar to what our dryers have. We cannot expect all households to go out and buy and put these filters on the laundry machines, as they are quite expensive and also large in size, so simply just do not fit in everyone's home. So stopping the pollution at the source is the easiest way to eliminate microfibers from entering our environment. And the best way to implement this is legislation to use the study showing that filters are an effective way to stop the pollution, and work it into policy to make this mandatory. Which brings me to Bill 279, which we're very excited about. So Bill 279 states, the bill amends the Environmental Protection Act to prohibit the sale or offering for sale of washing machines that are not equipped with a specified microplastics filter, and to provide for corresponding penalties in case of non-compliance with the requirements. And this bill was passed, the first reading was passed on April 19th. So Bill 279, it is on the table and it needs support, and here is what you can do. So we hope that you will consider two things today. We ask that the town of Parry Sound passes a resolution which supports Bill 279. In a package sent around, we have included a draft template as seen on the screen here. If the town of Parry Sound does pass this resolution, we ask that council sends the resolution and a letter to the premier that further supports the resolution you passed. We also have a template letter, and we are here to assist as needed. GBF has been working with other municipalities such as the Township of the Archipelago and Seguin, which have recently passed resolutions, and the Great Lakes St. Lawrence City Organization has also passed a resolution. Parry Sound has been put on the map from this study and is being viewed all around the world, as Lisa just mentioned. This study shows that filters work, and it needs to be a mass adoption of this for the best way to be, and the best way to do this is by putting them on future washing machines at the manufacturer level. We need the government support, and that's where we hope that you as the town of Parry Sound can help with this. And just to wrap up, I just want to extend another huge thank you to the 97 households who participated in this study and made this work possible. Because of these households dedicating to collecting microfibers over the past 2 years, we are a step closer to changing legislation to make it mandatory that all washing machines have a filter built in the future. Parry Sound should be very proud of this study, and the results prove that physically diverting microfibers with filters greatly benefit water quality by stopping the pollution at the source. And with that, I just want to say thank you again, and thank you so much to Council and the Parry Sound Wastewater Treatment Plant for supporting this study. We hope you consider supporting Bill 279 and passing a resolution. If there's time for questions, we're happy to answer, or you can contact Lisa or myself at any time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think it's not on our agenda tonight, but maybe we could have direction again that it be brought. I mean, the legislature doesn't go back in until the new year sometime anyway. So I'm maybe in our January meeting, we could have a recommendation on, and we just provide direction to support this legislation. So Bonnie, are you moving that?
Yep.
Okay, seconder, yes. Councillor Burden. Any discussion on that direction? Bring that forward? No? Okay. Anyone opposed to that? Okay, that's carried then. So we'll bring that in our, it'll be in our package in the meeting in January. Now, Does anyone have any questions for either Brooke or Lisa? Councillor Keith first.
Yes, I do have a question. I believe it may be for Brooke, but in any event, after these fibers are collected, and I really see the importance of doing this, but what I'm wondering is what happens to those fibers after they're collected? Now, where do they go? Because there's a big picture here. We want them out of the water, but I don't know that we want them in a landfill site either. So is there another process or something that is being developed for the future?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And what we are recommending is that you do just dispose of them in the garbage, same as you do your lint in your dryer. I know it's not the best solution, but at least it's concentrated in the landfill. And I know there can be leaching from the landfills, but yeah, it is disposed of in your garbage at this point.
Oh, you're muted, Councillor Keith.
Thank you. But what I'm asking, is there any group that seems to see the need of piggybacking and seeing what we can next do for our second stage? Because it seems there needs to be another stage. You've started what seems to be a really good idea and really important for us, but is there another organization or group that is starting to look at examining now what do we do rather than it just going into a landfill site, because we really aren't solving the big picture of the problem?
I just touch on that briefly. So you're right. You know, it doesn't solve the problem, and you still have this as waste, and the materials aren't recovered. But a potential solution to that would be to try to recover those fibers, not only in the washing machine, but also in the dryer by washing with single materials. And it's a little bit complicated because garments often have mixed materials in a single item, like think of like a polyester cotton blend. And when you have mixed materials, it's much harder to recover those resources to turn them, say, into like a new t-shirt. But if you kind of are able to wash with single loads, that might be possible. So there's a group called the Rosalia Project. They're advocating for, recovering the lint that is captured, but that's sort of the next phase and the next step. And one kind of hurdle to overcome is the mixture of different chemicals and different materials that are often in clothing. So that's one issue that they're trying to address if those materials are to be recovered.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Backman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to thank both of you for your presentation tonight. And Brooke, thank you for keeping me up to date with the reports through my inbox. I really appreciate that. And it's really nice to see those reports go and get published for the public to read. Just when I was reading your presentation and looking into the exactly what Councillor Keith's comment was in regards to recycling, I see that they're not a recyclable product, but a friend of mine sells the Norwex microfiber, and she had told me that they actually recycle their products and somehow in partnership with somebody turn them into renewable energy. And I was just wondering if you've ever heard of anything along those lines.
I personally haven't. I'm sorry, I'm just writing it down because I'm going to look into it. I personally haven't. I don't know if you have, Lisa, but it is like things like this are encouraging because as Lisa was mentioning and what your friend is doing there, I think it's moving into a good direction. And kind of stepping away from all this fast fashion and the consumers, and that we're also dependent on at this point, but I'll have to look into that further.
Yeah, TerraCycle has several programs where they'll recover any sort of waste material that can't readily be recycled, and then use this model of waste to energy. So that's a potential model where if you had a large enough cohort of people and say this was put into law and everyone had to do it, there might be more incentive to have some sort of collection available that can then be used for fuel, for example. You see that in many bigger cities. I think it's a little less accessible for smaller towns, but this recovery of waste to energy is a possibility. TerraCycle is a big proponent to that.
That's great to hear. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Thanks, Brooke. Thanks, Lisa. Happy holidays. Take care and good work.
Yes,
Thank
happy
you.
holidays. Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Okay, reports. And we'll start with Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had no official meetings in the last couple of weeks to report on, but I do have a couple of notes to pass along. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind and encourage people of the area that it is still not too late if you'd like to make a donation and be a Santa to a senior on behalf of the West Parry Sound District Community Support Services. You can call the office 705-746-5602. You can send your checks to the West Parry Sound District Community Support Services at 21A Belvedere Avenue. I'll post this information on my Facebook and at dougmccann.ca as well. Donations are tax deductible, and it goes towards helping seniors who otherwise would perhaps maybe do without this year. There's still lots of seniors in our area that are very much alone and in need come Christmas. So if you would like to make a donation, certainly that would be welcome. Get in touch with the office. And I would take this opportunity to, on behalf of my wife Josie and myself, to wish this council, mayor and council, town staff, and the people of Parry Sound a very merry and safe, happy, healthy New Year. So a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year throughout 2022. The spirit of Christmas and the joy of giving is very much alive in this town. It has been most evident this year and every year with the generous help and support by the people to the many organizations in their efforts to help those who are less fortunate. And I think we should give ourselves a hand and a pat on the back. May we never take our good fortune and good health for granted, expressing gratitude in any number of ways by giving back. So happy holidays to everyone. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. A couple of meetings to report on. Briefly, on December the 8th, I attended the monthly meeting of the Downtown Business Association. And again, I think I mentioned at the last meeting that we had lost our executive administrator and are in the process of starting the search for a new person to fill that position. We're looking at the possibility. It appears that there's a need to look seriously at making that a full-time position rather than the part-time position that it is now. So we'll look into the feasibility of that. And meanwhile, in the meantime, the former executive administrator, April Denman, has stepped in to fill that position temporarily, as well as doing her full-time job. So I want to thank April for that. She's doing a wonderful job. The Girlfriends Week went very well. They had at least 397 participants, and we're very happy with the results of that program. So that was good. On December the 9th, I attended the meeting of the District Social Services Administration Board. Again, the things are moving along well there. The budget is in the works, and we've reviewed both sides of the budget basically, and with the exception of a couple of minor items, the budget is about to be finalized, and hopefully we'll pass that probably in January. And on December 16th, I was invited to join a group of people meeting with our new provincial progressive conservative candidate, Graydon Smith, and sort of had the opportunity to voice some of our concerns as a town. Things that we'd like him to look at seriously if and when he gets selected. He would hopefully will replace Norm Miller as our MPP on June the 2nd when the election takes place. So that was I think a good meeting. Graydon's a good person, and I think he'll do a wonderful job if he gets elected. I want to say thanks to the people of Parry Sound and the district for the many things you do so well. Giving at this time of year is something we certainly do well here in Parry Sound, and I thank everyone for that. I want to thank everyone for continuing to get your vaccinations and booster shots. We've had a pretty good record compared to many communities as far as our low rate of infection. So thank you for that. Please keep that up. And other than that, Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy New Year, and hopefully a different New Year. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, and the public. I would like to say I noticed that the last time around when I gave my report in early December, I shortchanged myself just a little bit. So I will mention that I did attend the special council meeting that was at the end of November. And I also attended a full day Indigenous cultural competency training. And I really appreciated that training because I found that Kelly Brownville did a very comprehensive manner in presenting the process of injustices to Indigenous people over time. So I found that very informative. And at the same time, when she presented the information throughout the day, it was not presented as a blaming, but rather educational and helping to better understand the process. So I thank her, and I thank the Parry Sound Friendship Center for putting that on. It certainly was very helpful to me. In addition, I did attend the planning board, the Parry Sound Area Planning Board meeting December 13th. Unfortunately, things did not go as I had hoped, as although members were advised in advance of when the meeting was, there was not a quorum. So that was a real disappointment. And given I've been a board member there for well over 10 years, this was the first time a quorum did not occur. So I found that very disappointing, but we all have to have different experiences, I guess. And I feel it's unfortunate for those applicants that wanted to have their matters heard that night, but I can only hope that next year will be better for the planning board. I will just mention that I've continued to volunteer my time to Salvation Army to sing and jingle those bells at the Red Shield, the Christmas kettle, and will continue to do so because, as has been mentioned, we have a very generous community, and I hope that generosity will continue. And finally, I too would like to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and may everybody have good health in the next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bachman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one meeting to report this evening. On December 8th, I attended the West Parry Sound Recreation and Cultural Board meeting. Since we are now ending the year, I'd just like to tell staff that it's been a pleasure to work with everyone this year, and of course to our community, to serve our community. I'd like to wish everyone a happy Christmas holiday and a wonderful new year. So please be safe during the holiday season, and we look forward to seeing everybody in the new year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council, staff, and public. As was mentioned, December 8th, I represented the town on the Recreation and Wellness Committee meeting, or the pool committee. And we moved definitely a few things along in that meeting, which was good. So we're getting closer to hopefully eventually getting a shovel in the ground. December 9th was the Parry Sound District Social Services Board meeting, and Councillor Burden covered that off. And that's pretty much my report at the moment. I'll say my wishes or whatever at the end when I make the closing remarks. So next we're on with the resolutions. Gotta change one here. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Burden. The council hereby appoints the following individuals to the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame Exhibition Ad Hoc Advisory Committee: Peter Conacher, Bill French, Dave Garrigan, Lisa Ross, Lisa Tababadong, and Brock Tudhope. Any questions, comments? Councillor McCann?
Just a comment to thank all those who did send their applications in, and for their enthusiasm and passion for the Hall of Fame. We have some good people that we're bringing in tonight, and we wish them all the best.
Yep. Okay, anything else? Anyone opposed to passing this resolution? Nope, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Burden and seconded by Councillor McCann. The council hereby appoints the following member of council to the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame Exhibition Ad Hoc Advisory Committee. So who's interested? Councillor Burden? You're interested? Okay. Councillor Backman, you had your hand up?
Thank you, Worship. No, I was just going to say if nobody else was putting their name forth, I would step up, but I think Councillor Burden is a good fit for this. Thanks.
Thank
Okay.
you, Vanessa.
Okay. Everyone's shaking their head yes, so I will. So it's council hereby appoints the following member of council to the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame Exhibition Ad Hoc Advisory Committee, Councillor Roger Burton. Anyone opposed to that? Nope, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Burden, second by Councillor McCann, that council approves the submission attached to Schedule A of the support letter to Lakeland Power to be sent to the Ministry of Energy, Renewable Integration and Distribution Energy Resources Branch regarding community net metering for the town of Parry Sound to meet net zero goal. Okay. Any discussion? Councillor Keith.
I just wanted to say, I don't know, like I realized that Clayton Harris's name is down for spokesperson, but in any event, whoever thought of pursuing this further, I think that this is a really great idea, because certainly we're already a shareholder, and certainly if we can get this down to net zero, we can't do any better than that. So I'm certainly supportive of this.
Thank you. We had a very interesting conversation the other week with the Ministry of Energy on this and how moving forward into the future so that we can figure out, net zero and communities and how we're able to, hive off energy and that sort of thing, and certainly supporting, the municipality with the solar field that's there. And, they're working with older legislation and trying to make this new way of doing things fit. So this support definitely brings that forward so that the Ministry of Energy and other organizations are recognizing that we need to move into the future and do things a little bit differently. And yeah, it's not same old all the time. So I think it's really important on us to support this. So any other comments, questions? Nope. Okay, anyone opposed to passing this resolution? No, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith, seconded by Councillor McCann. The council accepts the bid from RK Source IT Services for procurement of the scale computing server infrastructure in the amount of $103,416.17, including taxes and delivery. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. This would be for Mr. Pengra then. So Forrest, this is more than just pulling a Dell computer out of a brand new box and sticking it on a rack somewhere. And this is a lot of money. Can you tell us more about the installation? Is this something that's custom built? And what all are we expecting from this new infrastructure?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. You are right. This is far more than just a new Dell computer. It's the backbone to how we will provide services to the public, how employees will really work on a day-to-day. The servers that our applications will be running on, finance system, so on and so forth. So this is for our primary server cluster, or as people in the industry refer to it as a virtual farm. And so it allows for full redundancy and failover of computing servers, applications, so on and so forth. Meaning this is made up of a 3-host cluster. 2 servers can go down and you're still fully operating. So that level of redundancy is integral now to how we provide services, both internally and externally.
You follow up, Councilor?
Yeah, just to follow up. So we've often heard of the cloud, and I think this is new. At least I haven't heard very much reference to a server farm, so that's interesting. And so good luck with that. When will it be installed and up to full running?
Sometime after we pass this resolution.
Oh, talk about jumping the gun.
Yeah.
When do you
Mr.
plan
Mayor,
on
that's
this? Yeah.
correct. We at this point we will probably be looking at middle to end of February. But there are chip shortages, there's delivery shortages, delivery delays. So the sooner we put in the order, the sooner we'll get it. I suspect rolling out new infrastructure like this will take a fairly significant amount of effort. And I would hope that we will be well on our way within first quarter into the second quarter.
Great. Okay, thanks very much and good luck with that. If we pass this, of course.
That's right. Yeah, we got to pass the resolution first.
Thank you.
Councillor Backman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few questions for you, Mr. Pengra. Could you please explain hyperconverged infrastructure and what is the difference between this and a hybrid cloud, if any?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll touch on the first question, the hyperconverged. So in a traditional virtual farm system, you may have 3 hosts, a series of switches, and a storage device. And hyperconverged, they've actually married a lot of that into a single framework. So instead of having what would be called a traditional 3-2-1 system, like I just described, you would have just 3 hosts, and those hosts are inclusive of storage. And so the amount of latency communicated from, say, the hosts back into the storage is minimized, as is the risk for hardware failure. They all come with fully redundant power supplies between the hosts as well. The second question that you referred to is regarding cloud or hybrid cloud. We are a hybrid cloud organization. We have a good percentage of our infrastructure or applications residing within the cloud. For the foreseeable future, we will remain a hybrid cloud solution. There are certain software packages that we have that aren't really conducive to moving to the full cloud at this point, though I do believe maybe around 5 years from now, we'll probably be at a point where we will be scaling back on the physical hardware and be scaling up on the cloud-based hardware. But right now it is cost prohibitive, even though cloud storage is fairly reasonable. When you start looking at it from a production standpoint, it is considerably more expensive.
Follow up?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just 2 more questions. With regards to this, will we have to create a new comprehensive disaster recovery plan, or is that something that will come from the implementation of this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We will be revisiting disaster recovery with the new framework, as a large percentage of our network will be redesigned at the time of rollout. And so long story short, we will be reviewing disaster recovery in conjunction with this.
And just in regards to disaster recovery, if all 3 elements went out, what is our downtime to get those systems back up with this new system?
There's a couple different scenarios there. From the perspective of if you were replacing hardware immediately, it would be a while to replace the hardware. But what you can do is you can take cloud-based backups, which is already occurring, and you can spin up your infrastructure in the cloud. And that is very doable. You know, you'd be talking, I think saying hours would be a bit of a stretch. Certainly within a day or 2, you could spin up into the cloud space. Again, you would be paying a fairly significant amount of money for that as you're using the resources, but you wouldn't be permanently down by any means.
So then just in regards to 5 years down the road, if we went to 100% cloud-based, would that eliminate downtime to decrease the downtime in what we're putting forth right now?
It would certainly play into downtime. You'd really be looking at certain cloud providers. Anytime you're fully on the cloud, your greatest risk of being down is not necessarily from the cloud server farms themselves. It's the internet pipe going out. And so let's say we lost our primary internet connection, we would be down then. And that's where we're still seeing a lot of value in that hybrid solution. Although we do have excellent uptime and we do all have excellent internet connection. But as we all know in the area, our internet is provisioned from along the rail corridor. And if there is a derailment that takes out the fiber lines, that could be a rather painful and long outage for us.
Okay, thank you. I just have one last question, just in regards to the money. Where is it coming from to support this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is being fully funded from the capital infrastructure replacement reserve. So annually we fund that, and with the intent at the end of the 5 years that it'll be able to pay for itself. And this does fit within budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pengra.
Yeah, Ms. Phillips?
Yes, just a correction there. So that's funded from the information technology reserve, but it's all for infrastructure, but just a point of clarity. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Anything else? No? Okay. Anyone opposed to passing this resolution? Nope, no one's opposed. That's carried. They can now, Councillor McCann, go buy the machine.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, moved by Councillor Backman, second by Councillor McCann, that council directs staff to submit a 2022 Ogre delegation request to the appropriate ministers to outline the significant damage to the town's infrastructure and associated costs to the town as a result of transportation of road salt to support winter maintenance across northeastern Ontario. Any discussion? No. Anyone opposed to passing this resolution? Nope, it's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Burden, whereas much of British Columbia has been subject to extreme flooding and mudslide events in 2021, whereas donations will be matched by the Government of Canada and the Government of British Columbia until December 26, 2021. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Parry Sound donate $500 to the Canadian Red Cross for the British Columbia Floods and Extreme Weather Appeal. Any discussion? No. Anyone opposed to passing this resolution? No. That's carried. Sure, every bit helps from various municipalities across Canada in this particular case, and if anything ever happened here, we'd certainly hope that others would support us as well. So, bylaw number 10.1.2, moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Burden. That bylaw number 2021-7207 being a bylaw to authorize seasonal closure of all bicycle lanes being part of a highway under Ontario Reg 239/02 minimum maintenance standards for municipal highways be considered as read a first time. All in favor? And that's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Burden, second by Councillor Keith, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion? Councillor McCann.
Yeah, so for Mr. Kearns then, and I may have asked a similar question in the past when we were talking about sidewalks. So officially closing bicycle lanes, does that simply reduce some of the risk or of now I can't seem to find the word I'm looking for. It must be getting old. In terms of closing off the roads, are we basically saying to area people, you use at your own risk?
Through your worship, essentially, yes. So the official closure of the bicycle lanes under the minimum maintenance standards places them to be in a state of repair. So they're considered in a state of repair if they are closed. Which basically equates to we don't have to provide a level of winter maintenance service to accommodate bicycle usage within those lanes. So with the ultimate goal being hopefully folks aren't using them if they're unsafe, and if they are, they're choosing to do so without the expectation of that level of service.
Okay, yeah, so basically, in other words, they don't really have the recourse to come back and sue the town for injury or worse.
Through your worship. So essentially, that's the essence of the minimum maintenance standard, was to provide a defensible position for municipalities.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Keith.
Yes, Mr. Cairns, what I'm wondering is, because this was on the agenda tonight, were there any concerns brought to you in respect to, there are some winter cyclists? Did you hear any concerns in that area?
Through your worship, no. Actually, this came as a result of the discussion at council about sidewalks and signage associated with sidewalks. So staff investigated a little bit further into the the requirement for signage, because we did note that there were signs on the bicycle lanes. And subsequent to that, it turns out that ultimately signage is not legislated. It's not a legislative requirement under the minimum maintenance standards for sidewalks or for bike lanes. However, the bylaw is if we were planning on closing them. So this did come from a discussion of signage, not from concerns related to bike lanes.
Thanks. Councillor Backman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Cairns, for bringing this forward. It did raise a question, I guess, just in regards to how do we align our communities with active transportation? And we see more and more people getting the fat bikes and, you know, these tires. And I'm just wondering, is that something, or maybe I'll let you answer, how do we as a community align and support active transportation year round in this as we move forward in building active transportation in the cycling community?
Through Your Worship, it's definitely going to be a challenge, given, as evidenced by our weather conditions today. For example, they are very challenging to deal with, the swings in temperature and the variable weather that we seem to be getting on a more frequent basis. So I would hope that perhaps with a continuous network, ideally bicycle lanes are physically removed from the travel lanes of automobiles. I think that, you know, in many cases you see new builds or retrofits where they physically remove the lanes from rather than just having lines or just a distance separation, for instance, to provide that level of safety. So perhaps that's part of our planning process going forward. I would suggest that personally, I would be very nervous just having a line and riding a bike, especially given inclement weather conditions. So I think it's just probably part of changing the way in which we look at how we redo streets and connectivity to trails and that sort of thing in the future.
Thank you.
Councillor McCann.
Yeah, Mr. Kearns, you brought up something there. When you're talking about removing the those lanes, the sidewalk lanes, is that some sort of I've seen this in other cities, like a different colored strip for the bikes. Is there some sort of a fabric or a covering that's actually lifted off the asphalt? Is that what you're saying when you talk about them being removed?
Through Your Worship, no, I was literally meaning separated physically, rather than just with a line or a perhaps a half a meter buffer between the vehicular traffic and the bicycle lane. They actually have physical barriers between.
Okay, I see.
It's probably more prevalent in areas with less impactful weather in the winter.
Right. Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Councillor Keith.
Thank you. I was just going to make a quick comment. I've been to Amsterdam a number of times, and there is a physical separation. So, you know, the cars, it's a different, again, the way it was designed, and the weather does have an impact. There is totally a different separation from one and the other. And so it would be very uneasy for somebody on a bicycle to be somehow impacting the vehicles, because there is such a space between. Actually, what I've observed in my experience is where there tends to be a conflict is with the pedestrian who is walking on the bicycle path. That's what I've observed over the years, rather than the vehicle. So in every place, it seems to me there's always challenges in how you figure out how to cope with them. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? No. Anyone opposed to passing this bylaw? Nope. Okay, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Burton and seconded by Councillor McCann that bylaw number 2021-7208, being a bylaw to define the purchasing policies and procedures for the corporation of the town of Parry Sound, and to repeal bylaw 2015-6495 be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Burden and seconded by Councillor McCann that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion on this? Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you. I have a question for Ms. Phillips. Certainly, I can appreciate we've got to get with the times, and this certainly suggests a way of doing that and being more efficient. But what I'm wondering about in the background report, on the last paragraph there of page 2, it indicates that it says on the average through bids and tenders, the bidding system, buyers receive, say, 6 bids on each opportunity. It's expected that over time, with all bids being posted electronically, the total annual procurement costs will decrease between 10 and 20% through increased competition, as indicated through professionals implementing the system. So what I'm wondering is, you're projecting there'll be probably a 10 to 20% there's going to be decrease. How will you be able to track this happening? So down the road, council asks, how effective has this bylaw been? How is that going to come about? Is it by KPOs, or can you explain that to me, please?
Sure. So through you, Mr. Mayor. So in each year we have different projects that come forward. So in that way, every year is not going to be the same. But the town does budget annually. So as years go by, each time we budget, we compare the budget to the actual costs. And that's when I think we'll see any impact over time if actuals are coming in below budget or below previous year actuals. So we could compare that over a number of years after implementation and see if we can identify any positive impact of making the change. But like in this case, the supplier has claimed that it would be between 10 and 20%. And it should happen like through increased competition. But it is difficult to track, except for over time, we might be able to see how it impacts specific RFPs as well and compare what we got in the past to what we're getting now. Hope that sort of answers your question.
Not 100%, because what I'm hearing, I'm not trying to be rude, is we could. Am I hearing that there will be a plan to come up with some form of tracking? That's what I'm looking to hear. Is that what I'm hearing, that there will be a plan to do some tracking down the road so you can see what the impact is?
Yes, as RFPs come forward, we can compare how many bids we're getting now compared to, I guess, past instances of the RFP. So on an individual basis, you'll be able to see the impact. And I know in recent history, we've had fewer people bidding on some tenders and quotes at the town. And hopefully this will increase the number of bids that we get on different opportunities, so that it should create cost savings in that way if we have more people bidding on the projects.
Councilor McCann.
So, Ms. Stephanie, then I guess basically what you're saying is that town staff and council can make a better informed decision on procuring services, infrastructure, what have you, and that we've got this electronic thing in place, which is making the comparisons for us that we as humans might not have the time or the ability to see the whole thing. Is that what you're saying?
I can elaborate on this a bit. So there's a number of different advantages to using the online system. So some of those are that we can standardize like specific wordings and things that we want in the documents to help formalize like the procedure of the procurement and developing RFPs or RFQs over time. And in addition to that, also, when we do an RFP, we can identify specific commodities, like for instance, like insurance, for example, or transportation, professional services, and the subscribers in the system would already be subscribed to certain commodities, so they automatically get notified. So this changes how we reach out to vendors as opposed to them having to search for our website and find the opportunity. They will be notified of it. So it just has a lot of advantages to extend the advertisement of different opportunities, as well as it provides a way to invite vendors as well if it's an invitational type quote. It's another tool that we can use. Right now, through the procurement bylaw before the amendments, it wouldn't allow us to accept electronic submissions. And the reason for that is that this bidding system will protect the competitive process where they're still sealed and everything, and people can submit their bids electronically. So that is another reason for moving to a bidding system, so that it will be modernized and still function the way that we want RFPs and tenders to function as they're reach the deadline or the opening time.
Okay, and just to follow up then, Ms. Phillips, is this a one-time cost? Is this a licensing fee? What are we buying here?
So this is actually, there's no cost to the town other than internal implementation costs and developing templates over time. This is a vendor pay subscription service. So we've also researched the area municipalities, and some of the municipalities in our area already are using bids and tenders, as well as places like Huntsville and Gravenhurst and the Near North District School Board. So it's a well-used system, and it would seamlessly integrate with our website as well. So when vendors go to our website to find opportunities, they automatically see the page from bids and tenders. It will appear as though it's on our website. So from that standpoint, the customer service aspect of it is, I think, an advantage with using bids and tenders as well.
Well, the cost is right, as you said. Thank you. I think you explained it very well.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Bachman, then Councillor Keith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been a big proponent for bids and tender for a while now, so I'd like to thank yourself, Stephanie, and Ms. Phillips and staff for getting this policy change to support this product. I think we have, or at least in my time on council, we have had very limited RFP submissions, just in my opinion. I am a subscriber to bids and tender for my own business, and often when I consider to bid on this platform, I can already see who's shown interest on the bid for the RFP, which I think offers more opportunity for competitive pricing. Definitely on a global scale, this reaches obviously more vendors, which is very beneficial to the organization. And one of the features, as you stated, that any bidders need to actually pay a fee. So I think that it shows a level, not so much that ensures any compliance, because mistakes can always be made, but I think a lot of because you're paying to submit your RFP, people are going to go through it, you hope, with a fine tooth and comb. And so that, I think, long term, I can see where, because of the opportunity for competitive pricing now, and where you can see that, where I can see that my competitor has already bid on it and you already know their pricing. If you're in the business, that's could benefit us long term, which there I can see as savings. So again, thank you for getting this into the policy. I really appreciate it.
Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you. So, Ms. Phillips, what I understand, though, if this is passed tonight, there will still be a 6-month period where one can continue to basically do a hard copy, the procurement leave, before this will be phased out. Is that correct?
So on that, through you, Mr. Mayor, for the 6-month period, every time that we advertise on the bidding system, we have to either choose whether we'll accept bids in hard copy or electronic format, but we can't accept both things. So from the procurement lead would have to decide upfront sort of whether they're going to accept electronically or whether they're going to accept hard copy. So really it's just to allow for more of a training period for internal staff where if they're not quite ready with the templates, that they could choose to still post on bids and tenders, but accept it in hard copy form. Because when we do electronic copy form, we have to develop forms within the system requesting like pricing and them to fill out fields, which is a bit more work. So in the new year, we're expecting to do some change management training with staff and develop some more templates within the system as well. So it's just to sort of help ease that in and not hold things up as people get more comfortable with developing everything internally for the electronic submission.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks. Anything further? No. Anyone opposed to passing this bylaw? No, that's good. That's carried. Another step forward, right, Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Bachman that bylaw number 2021-7209 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Bachman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Anyone opposed to passing this confirming bylaw? Nope, that's carried then. So prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, January the 18th, 2021 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held via Zoom video conferencing and will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. The council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes and instructions accessing live, streamed, and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca under news and public notices. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. For Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. At this time, I'd like to thank everyone who has supported various organizations that support those in need year-round and especially at Christmas time. Thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. And to council and staff, and the public, everyone, please take care, stay safe, and whatever form of holiday tradition you celebrate at this time of year, please do it. And thank you very much. And I do get to say this at the end of this meeting, which comes from a book. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. So everyone have a great holiday, all the best, and take care.
Good night, everybody.